The grand chambers of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy filled the circular hall, their whispers echoing off the ancient crystal walls. At the center of the chamber, Elder Marcus stood before the council's main display, his hand shaking as he held in data crystal that would change everything. "Members of the council," he began, his voice steady despite his nerves. "What I found in the archives of the first ones will reshape our understanding of not just humanity, but of our entire galaxy's history." The chamber fell silent. Elder Marcus was the youngest council member in 10,000 years, appointed for his brilliant work in archaeological data systems. He had spent the last 5 years deep in the archives, studying records that dated back to the dawn of galactic civilization. He inserted the crystal into the display system. Ancient symbols filled the air above the council floor, casting a soft blue glow across the gathered faces of 100 different species. These records, Marcus continued, were hidden in the deepest layers of the archive's quantum storage. They're written in the language of the architects, the beings we've long known as the first ones. He paused, allowing the magnitude of his words to sink in. "And they tell us something incredible about humans." The head of the council, an ancient being named William, leaned forward. "Speak plainly, Marcus. What have you found?" Marcus took a deep breath. "Humans aren't a natural species. They were engineered, created by the architects themselves as the ultimate adaptive species." He gestured, and the display changed to show complex genetic sequences. Every part of their DNA shows signs of careful design. Their ability to live in almost any environment, their incredible endurance, their unique combination of intelligence and aggression. None of it was an accident. Murmurs filled the chamber. Humans were the newest members of the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel just 50 years ago. They were known throughout the galaxy for their remarkable ability to survive and thrive in conditions that would kill most species. "But why?" asked one of the other elders. "Why create such a species?" Marcus's expression darkened. "Because they were afraid. The records speak of a threat, something coming from beyond the galaxy's edge. The architects needed a weapon, a species that could fight this threat. They chose Earth as their testing ground because its harsh and varying conditions would help create the perfect warriors." The display showed images of ancient Earth, its changing climates, its dangerous predators, its natural disasters. All of it, according to the records, had been carefully monitored and sometimes even adjusted by the architects to test their creation. "But the architects vanished," Marcus said. "They disappeared before their weapon, before humans were ready." The records end abruptly, but they suggest that whatever threat they feared was getting closer. William stood, his ancient form towering over the other council members. "If what you say is true, this could destabilize the entire galactic community. Humans have spread to hundreds of worlds in just 50 years. They've built the strongest fleet in the galaxy. If they learn they were created as weapons, they must be told," Marcus insisted, "because the records show something else." He changed the display one final time, showing a massive dark mass approaching the galaxy's edge. "The threat the architects feared, I believe it's finally arriving. And humans might be our only hope of stopping it." The chamber erupted in chaos. Some council members demanded immediate action, others called for secrecy. But above the noise, William's voice cut through with ancient authority. "We will need time to verify these findings," he announced. "But if they are true, we must proceed carefully. Humanity's response to this news could either save us all or tear the galaxy apart." As the council argued, Marcus stared at the display showing the approaching darkness. He couldn't help but wonder, had the architect's plan worked too well? Had they created not just the ultimate weapon, but something more? Only time would tell. And time, he feared, was running out. 3 days after Marcus's revelation, the council called an emergency meeting. This time, the chamber was nearly empty, with only the highest-ranking members present. The room's massive screens showed the ancient records Marcus had spent the last 72 hours translating. "The architect's records are clear," Marcus said, his voice rough from lack of sleep. "They didn't just want warriors. They wanted survivors." He brought up images of early human test subjects, their DNA sequences glowing in the dim light. William studied the data with tired eyes. "Show them what you found about the testing process." The screens filled with images of ancient Earth. The architects had shaped the planet over millions of years, creating challenges that would force their creation to adapt or die. Ice ages, warming periods, floods, and droughts, all carefully controlled to push the developing humans to their limits. "They tested everything," Marcus explained. "They wanted to know if humans could survive extreme heat, so they created deserts. They wanted to test their cold resistance, so they triggered ice ages. But the most interesting tests weren't about survival at all." He changed the display to show ancient battle sites. The architects introduced threats, engineered predators, harsh conditions, competing tribes. They wanted to see how humans would react under pressure. "And what did they find?" asked one of the elders. "Something unexpected." Marcus brought up new data. Humans didn't just fight back. They innovated. When faced with stronger predators, they didn't evolve thicker skin or sharper claws. They invented weapons. When cold threatened them, they didn't grow fur. They learned to make fire and clothes. The council members watched in silence as Marcus showed them humanity's early achievements. Simple tools became complex machines. Small tribes grew into vast civilizations. Each challenge the architects presented was met not just with survival, but with creativity. "But here's what truly worried the architects," Marcus continued. "Humans started to advance faster than planned. Their test subjects were learning, adapting, and passing knowledge down generations at an incredible rate. The architects realized they might have created something they couldn't fully control." William leaned forward. "Is that why they disappeared? Fear of their own creation?" Marcus shook his head. "No, they disappeared because they ran out of time." He pulled up the final records, dated just before the architects vanished. They called it the Void Swarm, a force that had already consumed 12 galaxies. The architects knew it was coming, but they thought they had thousands of years to prepare their weapon. The screen showed the architects' final calculations. The Void Swarm had arrived ahead of schedule, forcing them to make an impossible choice. They couldn't complete their work, Marcus said softly. So they did the only thing they could. They erased all traces of themselves from Earth and let humanity develop naturally. They hoped that free evolution combined with their engineering would create something even better than they planned. "And did it?" asked another elder. Marcus brought up modern human achievement records. In just a few thousand years, humans had gone from simple tools to space travel. Their adaptability had only grown stronger. Their drive to survive had become a drive to explore and expand. "The architects wanted a weapon," Marcus said, "but they created something more. Humans don't just fight. They build, create, explore, and protect. They turned their engineered aggression into determination. Their survival instinct became curiosity." William stood slowly, and now the very threat the architects feared is approaching again. "The question is, do we tell humanity the truth about their origins?" Marcus looked at the latest deep space scans, showing the dark mass at the galaxy's edge. "We have to. The architects' records show that humans have abilities they haven't even discovered yet, hidden potential locked in their DNA. If they're going to reach their full potential in time to face this threat, they need to know what they really are." The council chamber fell silent as the weight of the decision pressed down on them. The fate of the galaxy might depend on how humans reacted to learning they were created as the ultimate weapon, but had become something far more interesting instead. The Earth Defense Force headquarters buzzed with activity. Screens covering every wall showed the same thing: a massive dark cloud moving through space, consuming everything in its path. Commander James stood at the center of the command room, his face lit by the glow of holographic displays. The news had spread quickly after the Council's announcement. Humans were engineered weapons, created by ancient beings to fight a threat that was now at their doorstep. Some people panicked. Others refused to believe it. But here in the EDF headquarters, they had more important things to worry about. The Void Swarm has consumed 3 solar systems in the past week, Commander James reported to the emergency meeting. Around him sat military leaders from every human colony, their faces grim. Each attack is faster than the last. They're learning. On the main screen, images from the fallen systems played out. Entire planets disappeared into the darkness, leaving nothing behind. Not even light escaped once the swarm arrived. The Council has given us access to all the Architect's data about our capabilities, James continued. Dr. Anna and her team are working to unlock our hidden potential, but we need time. Time we don't have. An alert flashed across the screens. Admiral Stone, commander of the Outer Defense Fleet, appeared on the main display. Commander, we've lost contact with Outpost 7. The swarm is moving faster than our predictions. At this rate, they'll reach populated systems in less than a month. The room fell silent. Outpost 7 was supposed to be safely out of range. Its loss meant all their calculations were wrong. James studied the tactical display, his engineered mind processing possibilities faster than any normal human could have. The architects had built them to be natural warriors, but they'd also made them natural leaders. It was time to prove they were both. We need to evacuate the outer colonies, he announced. Not just humans, every species. The Council says we were built to be weapons, but I say we were built to be protectors. We're not letting anyone die out there. Protests erupted around the room. Moving millions of people would take massive resources they needed for the fight ahead. But James held up his hand, and the room fell quiet again. The architects made us adaptable, made us survivors, he said, but they also made us human. We don't abandon people, any people, to die. That's not what weapons do. That's what guardians do. The tactical display updated again, showing the evacuation routes they'd need. James turned to face the gathered leaders. I need colony ships repurposed for evacuation. I need defense fleets coordinated with Council forces, and I need everyone to understand something. This isn't just humanity's fight. This is about protecting our whole galaxy. Dr. Anna's face appeared on one of the screens. Her eyes were bright with excitement despite the dark circles under them. Commander, we've had a breakthrough. The genetic sequences we thought were weapons systems, they're more than that. They're interfaces. The room's attention shifted to her display. The architects didn't just give us enhanced strength or speed, she explained. They gave us the ability to connect with and control their technology. Technology we're just starting to find buried on planets across the galaxy. James felt the pieces falling into place. They didn't just make us to fight the swarm, he said slowly. They made us to use their weapons, their ships, their defense systems. He looked around the room, seeing the same realization dawn on every face. Everything they built for us to find when we were ready. Admiral Stone's voice cut through the silence. Then I'd say it's time we started looking harder for these weapons. The swarm isn't going to wait while we catch up on our heritage. James nodded, his decision made. Launch the evacuation protocols. Start searching every world we know the architects visited, and get me a direct line to the Council. He looked up at the tactical display, watching the dark mass of the swarm crawl closer to populated space. It's time to show the galaxy exactly what humanity was made for. Deep in an ancient facility beneath the Martian surface, Dr. Anna stood before a massive door covered in architect symbols. After 3 weeks of searching, they'd found their first major discovery, a weapons vault sealed for billions of years, waiting for humans to claim their inheritance. The genetic key is ready, she said into her comm unit. Behind her, Commander James and a team of scientists watched as she pressed her palm against the door's central panel. For a moment, Nothing happened. Then, her enhanced DNA triggered something deep within the ancient mechanisms. The door shuddered and began to open with a sound that echoed through billions of years of silence. By all the stars, someone whispered as light flooded the chamber beyond. Inside, rows of sleek ships filled a hangar larger than any human construction. They weren't built for any known species. They were built for humans, crafted to match perfectly with their engineered biology. Commander James stepped forward, his hand brushing against the nearest ship's hull. The vessel hummed to life at his touch, its systems recognizing the DNA it was designed for. How many facilities like this have we found? 7 so far, Dr. Anna replied, checking her datapad. We've got teams activating similar vaults on Europa, Titan, and 4 other moons across 3 star systems. The architects hid their gifts well, spread them out so no single discovery could reveal everything. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from Admiral Stone. His hologram appeared in the center of the group, his expression grim. The Void Swarm just took another system, but this time we got better readings. They're not just consuming worlds, they're converting them, using the matter to make more of themselves. James looked at the ancient ships surrounding them. How long until our crews can pilot these? Dr. Anna stepped closer to one of the vessels, her enhanced vision scanning its systems. That's the amazing part. These ships were designed to interface directly with our enhanced genetics. Our pilots won't need training. The ships will respond to their thoughts, move like extensions of their own bodies. Good, James said, because we're going to need every advantage. He turned to address the gathered team. Start powering up these ships. I want them ready for deployment in 24 hours. The next day, humanity revealed their discovery to the Council. The Great Chamber was silent as James showed recordings of the first test flights. Human pilots, connected directly to their ships, performed maneuvers that should have been impossible. The architect's technology, combined with human adaptability, created something entirely new. We were made for this, James told the Council. Not just to fight, but to protect. These ships, these weapons, they're not just tools of destruction. They're shields for the entire galaxy. The Council's response was immediate. Every species pledged their support to the human-led defense force. Ships, resources, and personnel poured in from across the galaxy. What had started as fear of humanity's true nature had transformed into hope. In the weeks that followed, more vaults were discovered. Each one contained new weapons, new ships, new tools that only humans could use. The architects had left them everything they needed. They just had to find it all in time. Dr. Anna's team made another breakthrough in understanding human potential. The architects didn't just give us the ability to fight, she explained during a briefing. They gave us the ability to unite. Our enhanced empathy, our drive to protect. It's all part of the design. We're not just weapons. We're leaders. Commander James stood on the bridge of his new flagship, watching as the combined fleet of humanity and their allies prepared for their first major offensive. The ships hummed with ancient power, ready to serve their intended pilots after billions of years of waiting. A message came in from Admiral Stone. Void Swarm spotted at the edge of the Carina sector. They're heading for populated systems. James looked at his crew, saw the determination in their eyes. They weren't fighting because they were made to. They were fighting because they chose to. All ships, he commanded, prepare for jump. It's time to show the Void Swarm why the architects chose humanity. The battle in the Carina sector lasted 3 days. When it was over, 7 human ships were destroyed, but they'd pushed back the Void Swarm for the first time in recorded history. In the aftermath, Dr. Anna made a discovery that would change everything. Look at the brain scans from our pilots, she said, pointing to the data floating in front of Commander James. They stood in the medical bay of the flagship, surrounded by injured but triumphant crew members. During the battle, something activated in their DNA, something we've never seen before. The scans showed new neural pathways lighting up, sections of the brain that had been dormant suddenly burning with activity. The architects built fail-safes into our genetic code, she explained. Abilities that would only activate when we faced the right enemy. One of the injured pilots, Officer Tom, sat up on his medical bed. During the fight, it was like I could feel the swarm. Not just see them, but sense their movements before they made them. Dr. Anna nodded excitedly. The architects didn't just give us better reflexes or stronger bodies. They gave us the ability to evolve in the middle of a fight. To adapt not just over generations, but in moments. Commander James watched as more data poured in from ships across the fleet. Every human who had faced the swarm directly showed the same changes. Can we control it? Better than that, Dr. Anna said, pulling up new simulations. We can enhance it. Now that we know these sequences exist, we can help them activate faster. Every human in the fleet could have these abilities ready before the next battle. Admiral Stone's hologram appeared in the medical bay. "You'll want to see this," he said, his voice tense. "We just got readings from the systems the swarm consumed. They're not just taking worlds anymore. They're studying them, learning from them." The hologram showed dark tendrils of the swarm wrapping around planets, not destroying them immediately, but examining them first. They're adapting too, James realized. Just like us. Dr. Anna's eyes lit up with new understanding. That's why the architects chose to make us the way they did. The swarm adapts to defeat any fixed defense. So they created a species that would never stop adapting, never stop changing. The medical bay's screens filled with new data as Dr. Anna accessed more of the architects' records. Every battle we fight, every time we face them, we'll develop new abilities, new ways to fight. We're not just using the architects' weapons, we're becoming them. Officer Tom stood up, steadier now. "I can still feel it," he said. "The changes. It's like my mind is reaching out further than before." Other injured pilots nodded in agreement. They were all experiencing the same evolution. Commander James made a quick decision. "Start working with every human in the fleet. I want everyone ready for these changes before the swarm attacks again. And get me the council. They need to know what we're dealing with." The next few days were a blur of activity. Dr. Anna's team worked around the clock, helping pilots and crew members unlock their dormant abilities. Some developed enhanced perception, able to sense threats from impossible distances. Others found they could process information at incredible speeds, making complex battle calculations in seconds. But the most significant change was in how they worked together. The human fleet began moving as one, pilots instinctively coordinating their actions without need for commands. The architects' ships responded to this unity, their ancient systems linking with their pilots in ways not even the architects had predicted. "We're more than they planned for," Dr. Anna told James as they watched the fleet prepare for their next encounter. "The architects built us to be weapons, but they gave us the freedom to become something else. Something new." James looked out at the ships moving in perfect harmony, their human pilots evolving with every passing moment. "The swarm adapts to survive," he said. "We adapt to protect. That's the difference. That's why we'll win." A signal came in from the outer sensors. The void swarm had been spotted, moving toward populated space again. But this time, humanity was ready. This time, they understood what they truly were. Not just weapons, not just guardians, but something entirely new, something that even their creators hadn't fully imagined. The void swarm filled the view screens of every ship in the human fleet. It looked like a living storm of darkness, stretching across space as far as sensors could detect. This was no longer a skirmish. This was the main force, and it had come for the populated worlds. Commander James stood on his flagship's bridge, connected to the ancient ship systems through his enhanced DNA. Around him, his crew worked with perfect coordination, their newly awakened abilities letting them process battle information at incredible speeds. "All ships report ready," Admiral Stone announced through the fleet-wide channel. "The Council's forces are in position behind us. They'll protect the civilian evacuation routes if we fail." "We won't fail," James replied. He could feel every ship in his fleet, could sense the determination of every human pilot. Their shared evolution had created a battle network unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Void Swarm made its first move. Tendrils of darkness shot out, trying to surround the fleet. But the human pilots reacted before the attack even began, their enhanced senses warning them seconds before each strike. Pattern Alpha, James commanded, and the fleet moved as one. Ships wove between the dark tendrils, ancient weapons blazing with energy the architects had designed specifically to fight this enemy. Where the light touched the darkness, the swarm recoiled. Dr. Anna's voice came through the command channel. The swarm is already trying to adapt to our attacks, but our pilots are adapting faster. Every minute in battle is pushing our evolution further. She was right. James could feel new abilities awakening across the fleet. Pilots who could predict the swarm's movements with perfect accuracy. Gunners who could sense weak points in the enemy's structure. Engineers who understood the architect's technology more deeply with each passing moment. The battle stretched on for hours. The Void Swarm was massive, powerful, and endless, but it couldn't match humanity's rate of adaptation. Every time it developed a new attack, the humans had already evolved a defense. Every time it found a weakness, the fleet had already strengthened it. "They're pulling back in Sector 7, Admiral Stone reported. "First time I've ever seen the swarm retreat." But James sensed something wrong. The swarm wasn't retreating. It was gathering itself for something bigger. He could feel it in the way the darkness moved, in the patterns only his enhanced mind could see. "All ships, full power to shields," he ordered, seconds before the swarm launched its desperate attack. A wave of pure darkness crashed against the human fleet, trying to overwhelm them with sheer force. Officer Tom's voice cut through the chaos. "Commander, the ship's showing me something. A weapon the architects built into the fleet, but it needs all of us, all our ships, working together." James understood immediately. He could see it too now. A hidden system that would link all their ships into one massive weapon. But it would take perfect coordination from every human in the fleet. "All pilots," he commanded, "link your ships and follow my lead." The architects left us one last gift. The human fleet moved into formation. Each ship connected to the others, their ancient systems recognizing what their pilots were trying to do. Energy began to flow between vessels, building into something that hadn't been seen since the architects vanished. The Void Swarm sensed the danger too late. It tried to scatter, to break apart and escape, but the human fleet had it surrounded. "Now," James ordered. Every ship in the fleet fired as one. But instead of individual beams, their combined energy formed a massive web of light that caught the swarm in its strands, where the light touched the darkness. The Void Swarm didn't just retreat, it vanished. When the light faded, a third of the swarm was gone. The rest fled, moving faster than any of their sensors could track. Admiral Stone's voice was filled with awe. "We did it. We actually did it." James watched the retreating enemy, feeling the changes still happening within himself and his fleet. "No," he said, "this was just the beginning. Now they know what we are. Now the real war starts." 1 month after the Great Battle, the Galactic Council chamber was fuller than it had ever been. Representatives from every known species gathered to hear humanity's report. At the center of the chamber, Commander James and Dr. Anna stood beside Elder Marcus, ready to share what they had learned. "The Void Swarm has retreated beyond our galaxy's borders," James began. "But we've learned something important from the architects' records. This wasn't the first time they attacked, and it won't be the last." The chamber's great screens showed the battle data. The swarm's retreat, the effectiveness of the human fleet's combined attack, and most importantly, the changes that had happened to the humans themselves. Dr. Anna stepped forward. "What we discovered goes beyond weapons or ships. The architects didn't just make us to fight the swarm. They made us to understand it. Each battle taught us more about our enemy, and more about ourselves." She displayed the latest genetic scans. The human DNA was still changing, still evolving, but in ways nobody had expected. The architects left us a message, Elder Marcus announced. We found it hidden in the deepest layer of their code, encrypted in the very DNA they gave humanity. It wasn't just instructions or weapon specifications. It was an apology. The chamber fell silent as Marcus played the message. Ancient symbols floated in the air, translating themselves into every known language. The voice of an architect, speaking across billions of years, filled the room. To our greatest creation, humanity. We made you as weapons, and for that, we are sorry. But we gave you something more important than strength or power. We gave you choice. The ability to decide what you would become. Our time is ending, but your time, your true purpose, is just beginning. James continued the explanation. The architects didn't just disappear. They sacrificed themselves, used their own essence to power the final changes to human DNA. They weren't running from the swarm. They were giving everything they had to make sure we would be ready. But ready for what? Asked William, the head of the council. Dr. Anna smiled. Ready to be guardians. The abilities we've developed aren't just for fighting. We can sense life itself now, can understand patterns in the universe that nobody else can see. We were made to protect, to preserve, to understand. The screen showed new data, human pilots using their abilities to detect damaged ships, to find lost vessels, to guide civilian evacuees to safety. Their evolved senses serving not just in battle, but in peace. The Void Swarm will return, James said. But when it does, we'll be ready. Not just humans, but all of us, working together. The architects made us adaptable, not just so we could fight, but so we could unite the galaxy. So we could teach others to adapt too. Elder Marcus nodded. We've been studying the architect's final gift. The changes in human DNA, they can be shared. Not forced, but offered. Any species that chooses to can evolve alongside humanity can join in the defense of all life. The chamber erupted in discussion. The idea was revolutionary, a unified galaxy, evolving together, becoming stronger together. It was more than the architects had dreamed possible. James looked out at the gathered species. We were engineered as weapons, yes, but we choose to be guardians instead. The architects gave us that choice, and now we offer the same choice to all of you. One by one, the representatives stood. Species that had once feared humanity now saw them differently. Not as weapons to be feared, but as protectors to stand beside. The swarm adapts to destroy, Dr. Anna said. We adapt to preserve. That's the true legacy the architects left us. Not the power to fight alone, but the ability to help everyone fight together. As the council chamber filled with voices of agreement and support, James thought about the long journey ahead. The Void Swarm would return, stronger than before. But they would be ready. Not as weapons, not as tools, but as guardians of all life in the galaxy. The architect's greatest creation had become something even they hadn't imagined. A force not for destruction, but for unity. A species that chose to protect rather than destroy. A legacy not of war, but of hope.